Hey Alex,
Hey Dennis.
good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Welcome everybody. We are live, I think, on all channels now. Substack crew, LinkedIn crew, just give us a thumbs up if everything's okay, technically. YouTube as well. We're talking about AI today. Boo, boring. But it's been requested by, I think, both your audiences and my audiences to at least, if nothing else, vent some frustration or some confusion
Mm.
to get some clarity on what's going on. I'm Dennis. I'm coaching technical teams and organizations to get out of feature factory mode. Alex, you're doing something similar with a slightly different twist. If you'd like to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. So I'm a fractional CTO. So I'm working across primarily kind of startups and kind of being that I mainly bridge between often non-technical founders and the engineering folks that they're working with, and then helping bridge that gap, and also helping, if they need engineering talent or they need something built, making sure that I can help them with getting the right people, make sure it's built in the right way. So yeah, I'd say that's me in a nutshell.
Why is this whole AI kerfuffle interesting to you? Like, why is it important?
I think it's important because there's no doubt in my mind that this is a significant technological change. It's the hi Nicholas. It's the biggest in my that I've experienced in my career. I've been in startups for about 10 or 11 years and trained as a developer and working hands-on writing code for kind of 10 years. So I'd say this is the biggest disruption, biggest change I've witnessed. So I think it is a big deal, but I think part of it is also the reason I'm fascinated by it and why I spend a lot of time thinking about it and writing about it and trying to get to grips with it is there's also a lot of BS around it as well, or there's a lot of hype, and there's a lot of projection. I think when and we've all experienced this as technologists who are working potentially with people who are less technically fluent. They can often see technology as magic, right? It's like this incredible thing, and often part of that kind of conversation is trying to help frame like what the art of the possible is. But software is interesting because you can kind of do anything with it, right? Like infinite time, infinite money, but like you probably could, bar the
And
law
that's
of
sort of the
physics.
issue from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Like the most common zeitgeist or anxiety regarding AI is that consumers want to buy it just for entertainment value, and it can be put into anything, but engineers won't know how to put it into their product unless they're also starting to consume AI. But engineers are consuming AI for different reasons than the end consumer of their product that they're building it. But the sort of underlying angst is that if we don't use it internally, nobody will know how to use it because it is a bit of a paradigm shift. So we need to dog food its usage to get comfortable with it, and then we see what we can tack onto our end user, which really has nothing to do with code generation. And then and this creates like a natural overlap where it's like a double whammy, like a double win for companies that offer AIs for developers, and they are running their own infra to provide LLMs for developers and for their own developers. So, and they are driving the most hype in the market, right? It is vendors who are offering AI. They are telling you that you're doomed if you're not buying their product, which is, it's like snake oil.
It is, so it's difficult in the so I think one of my kind of the thing I always bang on about is how important economics is in engineering, and that it's it's so fundamental to how software gets built, and I believe also how to build software well. If you're not factoring in kind of economic considerations, you're missing kind of a big part of a big part of the problem that you're kind of navigating, right? So I think you're absolutely right to say that there are economic incentives at play to generate this hype and this fear around, missing out. And I think AI is also a really interesting technology in that I kind of, in my mind, it's quite like a dark technology in the sense it's quite obscure. So unlike,
it's unintuitive. It's not like it's not as straightforward as a hammer.
But also you develop a very personal relationship, like with.
Yes, but also with social media, it is a sort of precursor to algorithmic reasoning, or I wouldn't go too far on that. It's not alive, but
no, I agree
algorithms. We know that algorithms influence behavior through social media, especially dopamine-driven loops.
Yeah,
we're not quite there yet with software engineers.
But I think what I mean is so let's take it back to like a SaaS product, right? Some new SaaS product comes on the market. If you want to, if you get good at using that and you're playing around with it, if I record a Loom or a video of me playing around with some platform like SaaS platform, it's it's fine. Like, sure, I might struggle with some menus, or I might click around, but there's very rarely anything like that embarrassing, shall I say? Whereas I've often had some like really interesting back and forths with like an AI chatbot, and got to something and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And a bit of me goes, oh, I love to share like my whole chat, right? Like, not just give the output. I want to share openly like the conversation I've had. But then some of the questions I've asked or the way I've asked it, like
or the memory it might have.
Well, it's not even like the PII thing. It's just like I might look like a bit of an idiot, or like other people are just maybe using this way better than me. They're not asking such stupid questions. There's this sort of, whereas you don't have like, when I think about like the web, and building building web applications, which kind of thing I built, everything's very open. Like, you can inspect source, right? You can see how people have done stuff, and it's all quite transparent. And whereas a lot of software up to this point, if you're writing libraries, if you're sharing tutorials, there's this kind of real openness about, particularly like in my experience, web technologies. There's so many, there's so many resources, there's so much openness and sharing about how people do it. Whereas there's something about AI that, first of all, there's this sort of like very personal relationship, whether that you develop.
It feels like people browsing, like looking at your browser history. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. It's
right.
Probably,
like it's that
level of intimacy.
It's that level of privacy.
Yeah. And so,
And I agree with you in the sense that there's an openness to it. I see engineers bringing it to their tool stack, even when their company isn't.
Yeah.
Right. So adoption seems to be very organic.
Yeah.
And in areas where there is push necessary, the push isn't like extreme. Like, people are easily convinced into just adding some AI into their stack, or interfacing it, passively, like a passive smoker. You will quickly spot a AI code review tool or a AI summarization tool in Zoom or in GatherTown or in Meet or in Gemini can now summarize emails. Every now and then you'll have a conversation with somebody who will then send you a AI summary or something, right? So just passive usage is just so predominant that you will pick up on it, and you will even identify it. You will see the patterns that are most frequent for generation, and it will just pop up.
So I think that's I think that highlights something really interesting about AI, which obviously is about the most. It is about the most. There are patterns to it. There are very clear patterns. I think we've all begun to really build that sense of, I can tell that was written by AI. It's got that AI feel. Like LinkedIn is a great example. So many posts of, you can tell it's kind of AI generated. And this is really interesting for me because, first of all, it does something interesting where it places a premium on something that clearly wasn't written by AI. Suddenly that becomes a lot more noticeable, like the quality, even if like it's not even that good, just the fact that you can tell something is human written, you can begin to identify value with that. Sometimes like there are AI things that are, clearly written by AI, but still good, right? Like there's still really great points and an interesting perspective. It's not a sort of good bad, dichotomy, but it is interesting to note these kind of differences. And I think when it comes to kind of coding and technology, this is where it's really interesting, because there are these set patterns, right? And it's obviously, if you boil it down, the kind of stochastic parrot view of AI, it's this like token prediction. Of course, it's going to default to like the average, the most likely. And I think what, the most common thing, that kind of feedback I've experienced in talking with others, and when it comes to kind of the code generation side, is very good at, the boilerplate, the stuff that has been written a million times.
The basic stuff. The
basic stuff.
The more commoditized aspects of software.
Exactly. And to be honest, and that's exactly what you do want to like automate, and you want something doing for you. There's no
but then
setting
not
up a basic...
taking it all the way, like taking over as the human operator when like there's like a mile's worth of stretch of commodity and then 200 miles of custom software, and it's really helpful for that. It's really helpful for that first kilometer, but for the first mile. But then you need to be going with the car that's driving the rest of the journey, not the one that starts it. Right.
Well, I think it goes back to that. I think the general kind of philosophy I take when I've talked with others about and what I would always advise like if I'm working with a startup is as much as possible try and reserve like a human writing, like, because we know going back to that economic point, developer time is expensive. It's both obviously like cost wise, but also just like energy and intensity, etc. So you want to save that for the code, ideally, that no one else in the world is writing, right? You want to save that for the logic and the bits that are bringing in things like domain-driven design. You want it to be code that only would be written for this company in the context and the problem that they're trying to solve. As much as possible with that, as you mentioned, that commoditized code, setting up a basic Express app or whatever, you want to just get that done as quickly and of course like safely as possible. But then you want to get into the juicy bit of like, right, well, now what am I going to get this to do that no one else is doing? And that is always going to be what AI struggles the most with, because if you're doing so, it doesn't know the context of your company, it doesn't understand all these things.
I mean, it can learn it, but there isn't any there isn't any guarantees that giving it a lot of information will make it a lot better.
No.
There's that in itself is a science that requires quite some rigor. We have a comment here by Nicholas. I would like to put it.
Sure.
It seems more aimed at you, or it was a comment about what we're talking about. Nicholas said, "Learning curve for a lot of AI is super flat until it's not, and you actually need to implement at scale. That's why we see so much hype and so many self-proclaimed AI thought leaders." Although the programming skills definitely help. How does AI integration affect startups? Like, that's your expertise. What are you seeing? Like, not the AIs, but like the people. Like, how is it affecting the people, the non-technical founder, for example? I imagine they want to wipe code everything if they see this as like a holy grail for replacing software engineers, because that's the marketing, right?
And I think most fans I talk to are pretty smart, and so they understand that there is going to be a limit to how far these tools can get. And talking with others who are working in this space, I think what's really interesting and what is so true is, the vibe code, and my favorite definition, which I've come across of vibe coding, which I heard from Martin Fowler the other day, is vibe coding is when you don't look at the code that's being generated. You don't actually care about the code that's being generated.
You just look at the output.
You don't care about the output. You're just whatever.
I mean, you just look at the application running, not the.
You want to see the app. You want to say now change this color to red or whatever. You never look at the output code, right? And so I think there's huge value in that, and in the sense of you can actually now, there is there is no substitute for the, one of the principles I work with is, working software in the hands of users. There is just no substitute for that, right? Until it's in their hands, until they're actually using it, it's all speculation, and no matter, it's all guesswork, and you don't know anything. So until it's actually out there, until people are actually using it and telling you, and either directly through feedback or the way they're using it, you don't know anything, right? And so what vibe coding really unlocks is quite incredible, which is you can have something non-technical, spin something up, get it out there, share it with people, get feedback. And I do think, and there are stories of this, and I'm hearing this from other I work with, where other people I'm kind of networking with, where people are spinning up and getting traction, right? Like they're getting customers, paying customers using this vibe code app. Now, this comes back to something I talk about a lot, which I borrow heavily from Ken Beck, the optionality stuff, where essentially we're working with $1 today and $10 tomorrow.
Could you explain optionality real quick?
Yeah, of course. So
without Kent's example, because everybody I talk to doesn't get Kent's example.
So
options trading is not basic finance, guys.
Exactly. So the way I think about optionality, the example I always give is if you're going to buy a flexi ticket for like a plane or a train, right? Let's say it's a plane, right? So you're getting a plane. Now you can pay, let's call it $50 for that specific time to get to that specific place, and you've got to get that flight. Or you pay, let's say, $100, and you can get like any flight
anywhere
that day.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So and you might go, well,
that's a very good metaphor.
Yeah. So that's a bit steep, right? I don't want to pay $100, but then you go, actually, I'm traveling with a friend who is notoriously flaky. There's train strikes that day. That's going to make it hard to get to the airport, and my boilers looks like it might break or something like that, right? It's like suddenly, actually, the ability that $100 starts looking like a bargain, right? It's like actually the ability, just my friend's late or something goes wrong, I can get a later flight. I will definitely pay more for that flexibility.
Yeah. So if you ever organized an on-site or an off-site and had to move your entire company from different parts of Europe or the US to one location, like you would prefer the flexibility over everybody on a truck here at that time. We all go on the same plane.
There we go. So we understand the value inherently of flexibility, and essentially good software. And I say good software not in a moral sense, but the more economically valuable software is more economically valuable because it's flexible in that way. Two apps could look identical.
Change. So flexible in the sense that, for example, houses are such a commodity that have limited need for optionality, right? Like you need to be able to service it, you need to be able to renovate it, air it, fix it, repair it, but that's it. Like you don't need to be able to turn a 4-bedroom into a 7-bedroom.
Right? Easily, and then swap it back again.
That is not reasonable because we like to use construction metaphors in software because we tend to use the same terminologies. It's engineering, it's construction, it's architecture, but it's not it's not anywhere near close. It's like the actual metrics that matter. It's very different.
Exactly, and I think
because the optionality is the optionality is the main thing I think that changes it, is that it's very soft, it's very pliable. So we want it to be soft and pliable, whereas a house is extremely heavy and dangerous to move around. Right?
Exactly.
So the physics of it already creates natural constraints.
Exactly.
So we would consider software that is difficult to change less valuable.
Correct. Exactly.
Opposed to a house.
So you could have two apps. You could have two apps that do identical things, and look identical in every way. But this one is vibe coded, right? And this one is, let's say, built, with what we would often define as like good engineering practices, right? It's it's got tests. It's kind of clean code. How you define that? Good CI.
And again, clean code, tests. These are all tools that express intent of what needs to be there, so that you can change everything else.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not there to prevent regression. It's not there as a sort of litmus test for code coverage or something like that. The reason we do testing and clean code and these things is so that we can differentiate the things that should easily change from the things that shouldn't,
100%.
unless we are actually changing the behavior of the software, right? So if we're not differentiating behavior change from refactoring. But I imagine you don't have those kind of discussions with non-technical founders often in a startup.
So it's interesting. So this is where the kind of you try and, because actually non-technical founders usually do understand finance often. You know, they're got a company, they're things like cap tables, all this sort of stuff. So the language of optionality and this idea of, you know, essentially you've got this trade-off of $1 today and like $10 tomorrow, right? So you can take the fixed flight and you get there, and maybe you're in a rush and and you've only got $50 in the bank, right? Or you've got $75 in the bank. So you're going to take that flight, right? And you're just going to make sure that you get on it. Or if you have more time and money and you want, you know, and you've got these other considerations and you can afford it, you're going to invest and have this flexibility to do stuff differently later down the line. Now, this is, and generally, this is the piece also, it's not just founders. So actually founders tend to get this. It's actually often engineers I'm having to educate, because what they'll do is they'll go, my job is to focus on optionality. My job
because they're used to getting flack for thinking like that, because the business needs to trust them.
Yeah. And so exactly. So it's this understanding of exactly. So they usually go,
they preempt an immune response and sort of become more defensive,
and no one else can do this. That is the key point, right? No CEO, and maybe some, but like no even a probably former CTO, no CEO is going to come knocking on engineering and go, when are you going to refactor that component? When are you going to, you know, create that abstraction, or when are you going to?
Of course.
It's never going to. The only people who can really see and understand and, shall we say, you know, actually create optionality are the engineers. So that is an incredibly crucial part of their job. No one else can do it. But if they get locked into only doing that and seeing that that is the only thing I do, then they're missing. It's actually a trade-off space. And I'm borrowing this again from Ken Beck, but it's like, we've got to balance. As I said, I work with startups, so for me, this is very key. And keenly felt of, sometimes you need the hacky thing that just looks like it works or works, because you've got a demo tomorrow, right? So you don't have time to invest in that future optionality. It might be hard to change, it might be hacky, it might not have this stuff, but sometimes the economic pressure means that if we survive, because if you don't survive, you never get to enjoy the gains, right? You might have the most beautifully architected app in the world that's, you know, and perfectly changeable, but if you're out of money and you haven't found the customers, and, you know, and it wasn't ready in time for that demo, then you're dead and it was a waste, right?
So how is AI making this, changing these conversations from your perspective? Like, is it making the conversations harder, easier, faster? Like, are the conversations getting better because of AI, or is it easier to trick people? Is it easier to fall into a trap? I imagine it's useful, but it feels like a tool that has all the safeties off.
Yeah. So I think I think we're figuring, there's a lot to figure out, right? And I think that no one has all the answers. I think that there's, you know, when it comes, I said, that kind of vibe code gets something, you know, up, there's clear value and we can kind of see that. But there is this, where do you, you know, there's got to be a line, or you know, some people would argue where it, you know, does there have to be a line? But in my mind, there is clearly a line between, you know, this is prototype, it's throwaway, it's great to, you know.
I'm not suggesting fraud of any kind, or
no
wrongdoing, or any kind of malicious behavior. I'm leaning more into this idea of, if we can demo it, and we have created a demo version that has zero optionality, then we can have the demo sooner, but now we're further away from the actual product. So
yes, but only insofar as, we may not be, we might have learned that no one wants that, and that's great. So we can throw away that prototype,
so
right? And that's great, because otherwise you'd have invested 5 years ago.
There's an upside and a downside.
Absolutely.
Normally you would be on the downside. You were wrong about what you need to build, and then this exercise is extremely helpful.
Yes.
But oftentimes the demo is such an unrealistic representation of what you want that maybe it steers you in the wrong direction, and then you end up building it anyway.
Yeah.
And then I see that very like a lot. Or we do the other way around, where to use your Kent Beck analogy, where we've already decided, maybe incorrectly, without enough data, to build a product focused for a startup.
Yeah.
But then we get a little bit impatient, and then we start squeezing in some vibe coded stuff, some AI augmented tools to it, and then the developers went on like I don't know, 1 PR per day rate, and with the AIs they go 5 PRs per day, and the PRs are much larger, which to anybody who's non-tech, even technical people who are not versed in software engineering intelligence metrics or DORA metrics, or even read the DORA report, or even read the differences in temperament between the 2024 report and the 2025 report. They look at it and say, yeah, we produce code faster now. This must be a positive, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine there's people inside those teams that understand that that's not the case. And if you then get met by a project manager or a CEO who thinks so, I imagine that must be extremely frustrating. And it's just creating another area where we disagree with management.
And I think the advantage I have in my role is that I can, I'm working very close. So often I'm sort of helping shape what that
conversation looks like.
Conversation looks like what the engineering team looks like, what the principles are. So, for me, what's fascinating is AI absolutely going back to these sort of like ideas like best practices, things like, particularly things like trunk-based development, I think get hugely boosted. Basically AI really exposes all these things that practitioners like yourself have known and talked about for ages, which is, as you said, you can pump out loads of PRs, but if the flow of the team, if the flow of idea into software into production isn't this smooth continuous thing, then you're just creating a bottleneck somewhere else. And now AI has, like, what we've got to see across organizations for all these years that usually spreads out over the case of 6 months or years or whatever. Now people are experiencing really quickly, painfully with, I remember playing around with Codex for the first time, and it was really fun, like firing off agents to go build. And suddenly, but I had like 10 PRs, all of which were merge conflict hell. And I was like, this is.
And it comes at the opportunity cost of you not being able to mix in your work with their work because it's incompatible, or you might not even have the time for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And they are not learning from your work. They don't get to see your work. You don't even get to write your work if you're going all in, which means they don't also get to learn from the smartest person in the room, which is usually the engineer, which is usually the human sitting at the desk. That's one of the things that people miss.
So I think this thing about learning is absolutely fascinating and really spot on, because, and this is why, I talk and I think a lot about junior engineers, right? And I think a lot about junior engineers, because I've always loved working with junior engineers and enjoy kind of coaching them, etc. But also it's a really, and I've written about this on my Substack, AI poses a really interesting challenge to us as an industry in terms of how we think about learning, I guess. And this really is it. And this is true. I talk about for junior engineers, but I think this is true of any level of engineer, right?
So when we talk about junior engineers, we don't mean the cheapest or the even inexperienced people. But when we talk about junior engineers, because we did this, we sort of touched on this conversation in the pre-show. Hello, Michael. Hello, Harris. Thanks for joining. When we talk about junior engineers, I think, at least I emphasize junior to be the engineer in your org most likely to build commodity software, right? So, so you have this sort of genesis, exploratory product, and then you have commodity stuff. And usually you train, like in a feature factory, you would offload all commodity software to juniors, hoping they will learn. Now, I don't recommend that. I recommend your juniors work with your most experienced people on things that matter, so you short circuit that path. Otherwise, you create juniors who can only work in commodity software, and they don't know how to work on your legacy system or something more important, and then that onboarding isn't really getting that on. Mr. Alex. You okay? Can I put you back on?
Cut out? Yeah, my bad.
I think you're cut out, refreshed. You're back. You
Okay,
were back
I'm
immediately.
back. Good. I was like, I did. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that.
The trap is if we're the average organization who hasn't optimized onboarding, you would put juniors onto commodity software first.
Yeah.
Which is the area where AI is also the most accurate. I wouldn't say strong, intelligent, just accurate. Okay, just the likelihood of them producing an answer that an answer that you will not immediately flag as incorrect is very high.
Yes.
Sorry for double negatives. I had even that was difficult for me to reason about. But juniors in the sense there are different levels of software. This is the simplest level of software. Mistakenly, benignly, or just out of complacency, it is likely they are stuck there, and the AI is then an immediate competitor for finances. Should I pay a junior to do that or pay an AI to do that? Now, however, a junior will grow rapidly into the important areas of software. AI will not. Now, and maybe I'm wrong, because maybe the seniors who are already in these areas can build higher quality stuff or more like scale out how much they build with the help of an AI and sort of leverage their own skills.
Yeah.
That on an organizational level does not make rational sense, but every now and then you get this unicorn person who gets a huge boost from AI, but it's not repeatable. That's been my observation.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to talk about.
Yeah, 100%.
Because these are bets and optionality risks and sort of unexplored.
Yes.
Like there's no guarantees here. It's playing with fire, playing a little bit poker.
Yes.
And when I talk to startups, and you talk to a lot of startups, you start with 5 engineers, and the assumption is that this should be normal and this is a guaranteed success. And there's some disillusionment there going on, or some Kool-Aid, and I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I think you've articulated and put it out there like brilliantly, and I think that's exactly. I think there's a lot of assumptions, and different assumptions lead to very different behaviors and very different outcomes. So, as you said, if the assumption is that teams are just doing the commodity code, and you're going to take 2 or 3 years to get somewhere meaningful, and before you could always get a senior to do
3 months to onboard, 6 months to get productive, something like that. That's just typical.
So previously you could always get the senior just to do that low level stuff, and they would do it way quicker, right? And than the junior. But
but that's not scalable. It's coming at the cost of them doing higher leverage work.
At the cost of that, and also juniors are cheaper than seniors. So I remember I did a bit of like back of napkin calculation. You end up, I think, paying about like double to get a junior to it, than a senior.
But it's grounded in reality. I've done the same. This to me sounds completely reasonable to do, especially
and as you said, there's opportunity cost of what the senior could be working on elsewhere, and that junior engineer is going to grow, and it's a worthwhile investment. Now, with AI, at least on those very commoditized problems, you're now talking about like it's not twice as expensive as like technically 1,000 or like thousands of times more expensive. And obviously, there's all the stuff around,
Wait, could you explain that number? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
It's obvious.
So
what that means.
So let's take, if there's a basic, I'm going to use a kind of.
As in, the engineer is more expensive.
No, yeah, the engineer is now thousands of times more expensive than getting AI. I'm talking about simple.
Assuming
components.
the AI is accurate. So within the boundaries where it is accurate.
Exactly. So for that simple kind of task of whatever, go in and very trivial, change the button color and update the,
I need a login for this page, like just commodity level software.
Commodity level
here.
stuff, right?
I need
super simple.
a banner here. Yeah.
It's like actually AI can do that pretty well, like really, and even if it's like pretty
build
good.
me a React native screen that has this button and a gallery and a slideshow and a hero section.
Yeah, exactly. And even
things you would do with Lovable or similar tools.
Yeah, and early stage juniors might do something even simpler than that, right? And so
juniors might even be very technical with it. They might say, hey, I need a React component that does this and this and this, and it has 2 buttons on the side and center this. Yeah, right? So it's just use that language but with the AI.
Yeah, and so all that an AI can do that task now, in minutes or and for pennies, right? For a very small amount of money. And so you're now talking the relative rate. You're kind of dealing with humans before, like comparing human time and value, and now you're comparing with machines. And of course, that it's incomparable. Like that machine can do it a lot faster and a lot cheaper, and it could do it 24 hours. If all you needed to do was generate commodity like code, you could do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right?
Yeah.
So that's where that kind of number comes in. And I think you also have it. So first of all, there's an assumption of, as you said, I think we're just going to get seniors and we're just going to leverage them to the hilt with AI and get them using AI really well. And that's it. And then for some people, there's also like, well, anyway, at the moment, AI can do that wrong, but it's going to go up to this wrong and then this wrong. And then soon it will just eat the whole thing. And so again, there's no point in investing in juniors because not only is it economically, very difficult to justify right now, it's also like that payoff you get in a few years also could never come if you're in that quite hardcore AGI world, which some are.
Whenever I hear that argument, I'm thinking, okay, we won't need engineers anymore. But who's talking to the LLM? The non-technical founder? Right?
Yeah.
So
that would be
we had this conversation in the pre-show in the sense that if it's replacing juniors, does that mean that in a small organization we go from 10 engineers to 0? And does the technical founder do all the work? Or does it mean that we are going from 10 to 7 to get the outcomes of 10, to get the revenue of what the 10 people enabled?
Yeah.
And then my question would be, if you can push this button and get this productivity boost, why wouldn't you want this productivity boost with 10 people to get the output of 13? Like, if you can increase revenue or cut costs, why wouldn't you increase revenue instead? Right? If the revenue is a factor of your people, right? So the math has to make sense. Like if you're simplifying it to this degree, the math has to check out. And I'm thinking about it from this perspective of are we attributing, organizational inefficiency to wins in AI when people get fired for AI reasons? Because, if you're comparing the numbers, I wouldn't just casually relate savings to AI, because it's possible that if you have an organization that is more productive with 7 people than with 10, that has nothing to do with AI. That can be an inefficiency in the organization, and just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. He's back. Technical glitch. Sorry, folks. Alex will be right back. I heard him blimp in. I just need him to come on stage. Now I hope his computer didn't restart and I'm not connected to his phone. Streams are still up. Let me read the comments real quick while we're waiting for Alex. And actually, I see the background is. Let me hide the background so we don't have that issue. That one. Okay, cool. So we don't have text in the background. Sorry. production. Nicholas, well, isn't the point of AI that we eventually reach a stage where skill set and knowledge aren't prerequisites for output and success? That's a great question. And okay, so that's a double. That's skill set and knowledge aren't prerequisites for output and success. See, I find it difficult to reason in that, right? Because we're looking for reasons for AI to be successful, but people will still have skill sets and knowledge, right? So the people who knew how to code in assembler didn't suddenly, before we had C, there was a million different ways of building a for loop in assembler, and people guarded their for loop implementation that was really good as a closely guarded secret. That was their style, right? So, when C came along, the people who knew assembler didn't go out of, they didn't lose their jobs. They become extremely more efficient and became C developers, especially since there was this sort of one-to-one correlation. I'm aware that the jump wasn't immediately assembler to C, but just as a metaphor. Okay, I will continue the answer. Just let me ping Alex, because now I'm a bit concerned. I just messaged Alex to make sure it's okay. Maybe he lost the link. So, isn't the point of AI that we eventually reach a stage where skills and knowledge aren't prerequisites for output and success? Maybe, but there will still be people with skills and knowledge, and maybe when we reach that on the timeline where the AI will have that skill set and knowledge, it's possible that the people will have more sought after skills and knowledge that the AIs won't have, right? So the people will also evolve and they will have new skill sets. For example, we didn't have a lot of hey Alex, welcome back. Sound check. 1 2 1 2. We can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us. You're on stage.
Okay. Hello.
Okay. Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
Is there a delay?
Maybe a slight delay on my side. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm having to join on my phone now, so it might be a little.
Okay. Let me put this off. I just had a conversation with regards to essentially, do we want AI to fully replace humans, or will this always be a moving target? Like, is that even is that just angst piloted as marketing for big corporations to justify layoffs? Yeah. Or is there a scenario where we just stop hiring juniors at some point? Like, is that even a positive outcome?
I definitely don't think it's a positive outcome. And I guess for me, and I'm aware I might be a bit frozen, so I'm just going to pause for a second, make sure you can hear me.
We can see you.
Yes?
All good. Yes. And the delay is gone.
Cool. So I think good. So I definitely think not hiring juniors is a terrible outcome because even if we just backtrack to that idea of, okay, you've got 10 engineers, you go down to 7, or even you go down to 1, right? I think that the world in which you've just got the one founder doing everything with AI, we're in this kind of AGI territory. And so it's hard to imagine even exactly what that looks like. So we're assuming that there is but then you've got a small cadre of elite senior engineers who can do all this stuff. But then it's very difficult to keep them in your company. And at some point they'll retire or they will go off and do something else. And then you're kind of screwed, right? Like the point of having junior engineers is in part that you are bringing new talent in and you can continue to do stuff in the future. And it comes right back to this optionality piece again. So my kind of line, my through line with AI is going to force us to do what only humans can do. And there is some stuff that a lot of humans currently do. And I guess in the context of like software engineering, we've already talked about like that commoditized software that humans shouldn't necessarily be doing. Like it's a solved problem. Like we can automate that. And so we should. But there is plenty of stuff that only humans can do. And for me, this comes back to this optionality piece, which is only humans, I believe, can envision like a future very different to what is currently the case now and begin to build towards it. LLMs are trained on the past and they can regurgitate the past and they can remix the past in kind of fun, novel, kind of interesting ways, but it's still fundamentally the past being projected forward, right? This idea of I'm going to envision something that doesn't currently exist. And I think this lies at the heart of, when we make abstractions, when we build things in a way that we know is going to make our life easier in the future, it maps more closely to the domain that we're working with. We are aware that we're making that software easier to change because we're projecting into the future and thinking, how would others use this? How would I use this in the future? And how do I make it easier? And only humans, I believe, certainly at the current moment and everything I've experienced with AI.
That is only true.
Tells me, yeah.
That is only true if humans remain in the loop. Right? So optionality, as we understand optionality, so things like BDD, continuous integration, domain-driven design, clean code, if you're into that, refactoring, these are anthropomorphized concepts. These are things that make code easier to change for a human.
Yeah.
An AI doesn't need clean code. An AI can change code if it's ugly, or like it'll have its own version of what makes it change it more economically, and the economics shift drastically for what it needs compared to what a human needs. So this only makes sense if we keep assuming that there is a case to be made that once all the humans are gone from software, we also don't need all of the the most archaic, the most anthropomorphized elements of the craft, right? The source code itself. We can just have an AI build, we can just have the AI generate the pixels on the screen to display the UI and not even need source code, just run the binary ad hoc and just have it generate on demand. I think Elon Musk on his recent podcast with Joe Rogan has been sort of philosophically reaching into this sort of area, is that could also be a plausible future scenario. Now, I don't agree with him on the timeline, but
I think it's very
but these the anthropomorphized concepts of like no code don't need optionality the way that human engineered software is to be used. But I think this black and white, we will go like fully no code vibe code, I think isn't even popular in the industry. I think that's just like a fairy tale that non-technical founders would like to believe. What I'm seeing a lot in engineering teams is that the tooling itself is changing how the humans interact with each other, right? Because there isn't so much this idea of, for example, the AI will write all the software, but maybe an engineer is still sitting, a very senior engineer is sitting at the desk, talking to an agent, coding, correcting the code, using their brain to correct the code, reviewing it with another human, maybe having a tool to like preempt a AI review. And that for right now, I think that's also worth discussing. Is that an experiment, or is that already something? Is that a fun experiment for engineers, but it just moves the bottleneck? Or was the bottleneck never the engineer, and we're just accelerating how quickly we're exposing product issues or delivery issues or other things that are just dysfunctional or unoptimized in the organization, right? So I think going straight to that black and white scenario that Nicholas was asking about, I think, yes, that is plausible, but only if you're in the area of software where you've already been replaced by no-code solutions, right? So if you have already been replaced by no-code, low-code solutions, then we can talk about AI replacement. But if you haven't, and there's this area for non-commoditized software, whether it's custom development, or, I mean, we're using terminology from workday mapping. We should probably call that out, right? But if you're talking about Genesis or productization of any kind, you will have engineers, and it's those engineers that will be using the AI tools. Like, don't get me wrong, I also use AI tools, just not for coding. Just use it for everything else. Meetings, summarizing stuff, compression in general. Here's a 400 lines of code trace of a error in production. Hey, help me find the anomaly, at this timestamp. I think it's a very good use case for AI, where you take a lot of information and you ask it to condense it. Whereas software engineering is the inverse of that, right? You're giving them a single prompt, and then you ask them to generate all that code, and then you tell them, no, that's too much code. Solve it with less code, please, so I can read it. I think that part will continue to be difficult.
Yeah. I think, and just my connection seems to be a bit patchy again. So do let me know if you can hear me okay?
We can. Yes.
A little bit.
How much time do you have left, Alex?
I've only got a few minutes, so I'll sort of maybe wrap up on this, which is
take the lead.
Yeah. So, which is, I think for me, this comes back to what is it that, because I think I can imagine that future where it's, let's say we do get AGI, right? And it's kind of, and really all the software, we don't look at it, is vibe coded in that sense. And we don't care about the output. We just trust the AI is figuring it out and changing it for us. And it just works. And we don't look at it anymore. We don't need to look at it. So then what is there a role for software engineers? Are we doing anything? And I think for me, it's like we're bringing the vibes, right? It comes back to that vision piece. If you're vibe coding, you need to inject that vibe, as you were saying, like, who's the human doing the prompting? Like, at some point you need someone injecting that vibe into the system to set things off. And so then you go, well, what are more valuable vibes to inject than others? And it depends what you're trying to achieve. But for me, this is why I keep going on about the optionality stuff, is when you're working with this trade-off of, we've got to consider, ultimately a lot of it will come down to economic constraints. I could set the AI off to do this, but there's always going to be costs involved, whether it's a subscription, whether it's tokens, whatever it is, right? So I'm going to have to be thinking, okay, I have an outcome, I have a vision, I have something I'm trying to achieve, and I'm going to get AI to help me achieve it. But I'm still going to have to set constraints. I'm going to say, do this maybe up until this point, and then when you've hit a wall with that, or you found something good, then you can add in more resources. So it might look, the actual practicality, we might not be writing code anymore, anything like that. But
how do you teach this?
Mm-hmm. And this,
because I imagine this requires a very good understanding of just being a CTO, being a software engineer, being an engineering manager, being a product manager, being a tech lead, being an architect, just being more pessimistic. Just in general, what you described is somebody with 20 years of experience in software.
Yeah. And so
we're talking about juniors using AIs, and I would imagine it to be completely plausible and expected that the junior engineer, the less experienced engineer, building on a commodity problem, that they get the line wrong.
Sure.
That they're just completely either overconfident or too lenient with the tool, so that they don't really say, okay, it's been 2 hours now, we're not closer to a solution, abort, I'll do it myself. I find it completely plausible for a human decision, and to just be frustrated. So how do you what controls do you put in place in startups to make sure that this isn't a wildfire experiment.
Yeah, so I think for me, that's why what I do with startups is usually try and play, especially if they're kind of cash constrained. I place a junior engineer to do a lot of the building, but I layer over that oversight, that coaching, and a lot of it is, it's not even so much that I'm like reviewing the code so much, because as I said, I think that actually, things like CodeRabbit, like AI review tools are actually like pretty decent, and it's more. I've always said like the difference between.
I don't share that sentiment about CodeRabbit.
Fair enough. Well, I haven't dealt with it loads, but but the difference between like a senior, a junior, and a senior, in my view, is like how many failed. Right. That's where the real learning comes from. So my
job
you
learn is from the failures, or are you just
and of course,
them?
Yeah, exactly. So my job is to help you fail in as fast as you can and learn from that failure as quickly as you can in simultaneously as contained, in a contained way, so it's not too drastic, and but also not in a complete sandbox where you're not delivering economic value, because otherwise
that sounds like technical engineering leadership.
Yeah, so exactly. So I think you're still back to, there's a lot of human. I think that art of teaching and learning remains very fundamentally human. It remains very fundamentally human, and I think AI can be an incredible.
Is it like?
Well, this is what I'm chatting.
One Alex...
Chatting.
Yeah. Sorry, delay. Let it catch up. Scalable in the sense that, is it one Alex for each junior, or is it one Alex and then you can work with like maybe 5 people, and because if it's one Alex and one junior, why isn't Alex doing the coding? Wouldn't that be more economical? If we're being completely blunt about it. And I know you're probably not interested in that. And
yeah. The thing is really important. That's why I think, and ultimately a bottleneck where I'm with a few different juniors now, so I can do that across a few clients. But then what I'm looking at the next stage is I also want to bring in other seniors who are interested in doing, and it wouldn't be like full-time stuff. It would be, again, like working with lots of juniors across different projects. And that's how you kind of build it up. And there's so much how I can do like very hands-on with the companies, right? Service level role. But part of the reason I'm speaking to you and why I write on Substack and I do all this stuff is, I do believe a lot of these principles and these ideas can be learned early on. Like, I don't think you have to have 20 years of experience to get, like, it took me 10 years to read Tidy First and have the experience. I had to have that light bulb moment of go, oh, this is what I've been doing, and like why I've been doing it. I just didn't understand, or but I don't think there's anything to say that you can't teach this, that you can't, that young bright people get it. They can learn, they can pick this. We can do better than what we had to. You don't have to do that 10 years of grunt work just to get to this point. I think they're gonna have to learn and fail and do. They're gonna have to do those 10 years of hard yards to get somewhere. But what those 10 years will consist of, I think, is going to look very different, and where they will end up is going to look very different, and that's fine, and that's okay.
I think one of the issues that people are understandably concerned about is that if you set juniors who become seniors in 10 years on this path, it's possible that they can solve a lot of even non-commoditized problems with things like Cloud Code and Codex. But ultimately, they will be, at that point, unable to ever solve it themselves without the tool.
Yeah.
Like, that's one
maybe
of the primary
at that point,
concerns. It's what I'm also seeing angst regarding interviews about, hey, should AI usage be there? Like, is it cheating? Is it not cheating? Is that normal under work? Like, if you know how to flip a, I don't know, black-red tree or balance it and implement it in a economical way in a language you don't understand, can you learn that very quickly and solve that problem? Like, is that a measure of skill, or does somebody who knows how to do that with AI, is that a positive thing? What about somebody who doesn't know how to do that and they know how to do it with AI? Is that better or is that worse? Right. So I think this comes into the area of yes, with the AI, I have built something I don't know how to build, at the risk of if you pull the rug on the license, or if Cloudflare goes down, right? So for example, Cloudflare goes down and people couldn't use Cloud Code and ChatGPT, would that be an acceptable risk? If you build something that you just that you build with the assumption that I don't need to understand it because it's the AI that needs to understand it. I just need to be able to work with the agents.
Yeah.
You know, for a startup that is already extremely risky, would you then want that extra layer of risk of, okay, what happens if they increase the price? What happens if they limit our tokens? What happens if they throttle us? What happens if it becomes illegal in our country? What happens if it gets regulated? What happens if Cloudflare goes down? What happens if AWS goes down? What happens if, I don't know, Cloud Code has a security breach and we will be, you know, unwilling to use it for a short period of time because of privacy concerns, right? So,
well, I think, and I think literally, you know, one of the juniors I was working with on Tuesday, the product he'd helped build for a company, they shipped it, they blast it out in their newsletter, sharing it with however many, you know, tens of thousands of users, and of course then the Cloudflare outage hit. And but the fact that he was there, he was, you know, looking at the problem, talking directly with the client. They figured out, you know, he managed to look in the database, see a couple of messages that hadn't gone through, made sure he logged them, and then basically he was able. I think this thing of like redundancy, right? And again, I was listening to the Martin Fowler interview on Pragmatic Engineer the other day, and he talks about like with non-deterministic code, we need to start thinking about like tolerances. And it's another kind of economic kind of mindset, but it's like, okay, what, you know, how much buffer, how much redundancy. How many, and again, it goes back to that we have to start thinking more in systems and stuff like that. And so, and humans are incredibly adaptable. And so that price, that premium you pay is like, yes, the agent can do it on pennies on the dollar when everything's working perfectly, but it has very little, you know, the tolerance is incredibly low.
If the agent is extremely efficient and cheap, let's build two of them so that we have some redundancy, unless that makes the system extremely complex. And then we, the humans,
but also then, as you said, but then if the agent just stops working, like, do you have anyone to go back to? And I think just to kind of wrap up, like why clients tend to work with me and why they like working with me, if I can speak on their behalf, is they care less about how it gets done, right? They care that it gets done. They care that there is a human who is accountable and is willing to say, I'm looking after this. And, you know, if it goes wrong, you can come and call me and we can talk and we'll figure it out, right? And I think that there will always be a place of just going, I know that there is, you know, there is someone there who is, and whether they're using AI or not or whatever, like there's still someone has to remain that accountable person, right? If something goes wrong, I need someone who I can say, you need to fix this. And I think that,
and we should emphasize that startups, especially like your ideal client, you have positioned yourself intelligently in such an area where the need, like the highest concentration of need, is commoditized solutions, right? So they're
up to a point, or like up to a point, and then it's actually
that's going from one person to 10 people. Most of their problems are commodities. Except that one core thing for which they already have an engineer, but it's that scale around them, setting up the basic infra, just connecting a landing page with a login, set up the SaaS, set up some login capabilities, set up like the nitty-gritty, put the logo on the website, and then just have the basic functionality on the back end, the back office, and whatever. I mean, everything that every single software engineer in the past has been trying to solve with different combinations of frameworks and CMSs and CRMs and content management frameworks and various different, you know, Django and Symfony equivalents, or, you know, I think the WordPresses of the world exist for a reason, because they are extremely strong in but breaching that sort of commoditized layer of, okay, this is a SaaS product. We need a landing page, we need a website, then you need to go to the back office, and then there's some stuff happening in the back end. That's going to be our core product. That's where our smartest people are working, and then the rest we experiment. Like the more user facing it is, the more faster we want experimentations done.
Exactly. And as you said, like figuring out, getting to that point of what is the unique thing here, the insight which, the insights the market we're generating, or the thing that we're building that no one else can. And that's what we want to, that's what, what I help people kind of get to as quickly as possible.
New book by Suzanne Kaiser, Architecture for Flow, which combines word mapping, team topologies, and domain-driven design.
Okay, I need to get a copy of that.
To really hone in on, okay, what part of our software is commodity? What part of our... Because to a lot of people, it might not be visible. I think to a non-technical co-founder, the line would be, oh, everything is custom software. Nobody has ever done this before because our logo's on it. Like, it's unique, right? But no, it's actually like 80% of what you need is a solved problem, and your most junior person shouldn't be spending 2 weeks on it. But at the same time, that junior engineer shouldn't be using an LLM to try to solve that as if it's a novel problem, right?
Yes.
So
just
take a step up, solve it more on an organizational level, and to just make it visible. Which problems are commoditized? Which problems are a product, and which problems are our product? Because maybe there are productized things that you are building. I don't know. In-house telemetry, in-house analytics dashboards, like companies, like it pains me to see organizations that don't know how to use Grafana in 2025, right? So just say, okay, well, you know what, like you don't need to build the UI for the thing that's just a temporary dashboard for something you're interested in today and tomorrow. You can just use an industry accepted tool for that. Or the amount of people that go microservices first, and then they go like balls to the walls, Kubernetes, and just lose their minds with Terraform. Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jen.
Where can people find you? What's the best place?
Best place probably LinkedIn or Substack. So I write a Substack called Engineering Harmony. It's a daily. It's a bit eclectic, but yeah, in terms of more, the kind of more professional stuff. If you want kind of the polished things, LinkedIn. If you want to see a bit more behind how I think and what I'm kind of experimenting with, then I check out the Substack.
Okay, we have quite a few people live with us today. Nicholas especially, thanks for being active in chat, and Kaloyan, I did see you. We had Simon here, Harris, Michael, Jace, Kimi, and Adrian chimed in to say hello on the other stream. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
This will be
live. Thanks, everyone.
There will be recordings on this on LinkedIn and YouTube, and your Substack, I'm sure. Alex, thank you so much. I know you have to leave now. I'll do the outro.
Pleasure. All right. Cool. Thanks so much, Dennis. Cheers.
Alex. Folks, thanks for spending your, I would assume, lunch break or pre-lunch time with us, even if you're moonlighting at work and listening into us while you're on an important meeting. So thank you so much for being here. Nicholas, extra praise to you one more time. We love having an active audience and be able to go back and forth. There will be more episodes like this on this channel. I've been talking to John last time about observability. Yes, Simon. Usually, AI, I think, is unavoidable. Talks about AI, especially with how it overlaps into my work, into extreme programming and coaching teams. So there's definitely going to be more of everything that you can find in this book, and talks about TDD and feature factories and product companies. Like that's sort of been my specialty for the past few years. Yeah. Take care. Have a lovely weekend. It's snowing here in Ljubljana. So take your kids outside to build a snowman. I'll catch you all on Wednesday for OTJ. Follow, subscribe,